We'd like to start the Historic Resources Board meeting for our first meeting this year, of January 28th. And may we start with a roll call, please?
Martin Bernstein.
Here.
Margaret Wimmer.
Here.
David Bauer.
Here.
Beth Bunenberg.
Here.
Patricia DiTiccio. Absent. Roger Kohler.
Here.
Michael McKinnon.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with welcome the staff, and then also start with oral communications. We have speaker one card from Leland Francois. And Leland, if you're here, please approach. Thank you so much, and welcome.
Oh, thank you, Chairman Bernstein, and Happy New Year and the whole works. It's good to be before this, the Chairman. My name is Leland Francois, and here on behalf of the other members of the staff and Palo Alto's Historic Resource Board and members of the public. My name is Leland Francois on behalf of the Ravenswood Community History Survey in Ravenswood Industrial Park. And of course, I take great pleasure at bringing some current events of historic nature to this board here at the beginning of the year that's going on the other end of town. And to many of us, that would be East Palo Alto. It could be Ravenswood, it could be South San Mateo County, it could be Cooley Landing, it could be the Port of Ravenswood. But anyway, I want to let you know that last year there wasn't too much preservation effort going on within the Ravenswood, old Ravenswood community. But I don't want to touch too much on that right now, but rather I would like to touch on a matter that recently become of great concern to me, of a historic nature. Next month is Black History Recognition and Participation Month. And I wanted to make mention of an incident that took place within our community. I believe it was 2013, Black History Month, or in 2013. We were blessed with the visiting of our late Les Williams. He's a renowned attorney, graduate from Stanford University, lawyer, and an entrepreneur, a great dancer, and a representative of the Tuskegee Airmen, Tuskegee, Alabama. He fought in World War II and became renowned most renowned after the publication of the movie Red Tails. He visited our Ravenswood community, like I said, about 2 or 3 years ago during Black History Month, and I really took great pleasure at talking with Mr. Williams, and we talked about many subjects. Primarily, we talked about a lot of the United Nations stuff, and at that time, our conversation was to continue. Unfortunately, that will not be the case. I never had the opportunity to publicly acknowledge what Mr. Williams did for our community. He took the time to come out, and we had a great time that particular afternoon. In appreciation for this, and on behalf of Ravenswood Garden Kits Products and the Free at Last Gardening Club, we want to send the Tuskegee Airmen Veterans Alumni some gifts. And one particular gift that we have put together over there, and you may have heard about, is the Erect a Garden planting system. Well, myself and my volunteers, we've been able to simulate what we thought was an appropriate gift. That would be a simulated Tuskegee Airman red tail airplane. Okay, so we're going to ship about a dozen of these to our brothers over there in Tuskegee, Alabama, and hopefully they can suspend them from their ceiling. And you can, this particular erector set, you can do just about anything with it. It's on 6-inch centers, and we're hoping they'll use the inventiveness and ingenuity to think of something that would make their office a little bit more accommodating. And now, just coincidence, in addition to that, we would like to also send George Washington Carver agricultural, George Washington Carver agricultural science experiment station some complimentary Garden Kits products. And the reason being, and I'll be very short with this, I actually think there's a lot of parallel historical significance between the early 1900s and what George Washington Carver did. and how he became renowned with his experiments in agriculture, particularly the peanut and the potato. Now, right parallel to that, California was just entering the agricultural industrial age, and I do believe there must be some parallel historic ties between what George Washington Carver did and also our Port of Ravenswood entrepreneur, Mr. I'm short for words, but Mr. Well, anyway, there's got to be some parallel historic significance which never has been touched before. So we're entering into a project where we're going to try to go back and try to pull up some of the old records of the California agricultural industry and see what historic ties have brought the two communities together. So we're inviting those of you who are interested in participating during this event during Black History Month to contact Sarepta Strong of the East Palo Alto Library, and the event is planned for the last Saturday, the 27th. And those of you who want to participate and join us, you're welcome to come out. All right.
Francois, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think that was my only card from oral communications. Any other members of the public like to speak? Seeing none, let's move on to agenda changes, additions, deletions. Any changes, or additions, or deletions to our agenda?
Staff has none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, minutes approval from December 10th, 2015. Any motion to approve or comments? Yes.
I'll move to approve minutes.
Any discussion? Any second?
I second.
Okay, any other discussion? Let's vote for approval. I say aye. Aye. Deny. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to public hearing. 300 Homer Avenue. I'll read the request into the record. Request by Palo Alto History Museum. Yes.
I had a quick question. Those of us who have donated to this program, is there any kind of a conflict of us being up here and have donated money to that program?
Well, there are certain cases where there might be conflicts of interest. Usually, we would ask board members to contact the city attorney's office to determine whether or not they have a conflict of interest. I guess this is a good time to ask any board members, do they feel they need to recuse themselves from this item?
Actually, I mean, I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's
But
do...
we probably ought to declare who has.
Yeah, let's do this. Let me read the public hearing announcement, and then I'll ask if any board members need to disclose anything or recuse themselves. So let me start by reading the public hearing item, then we'll open that up. 300 Homer Avenue, request by Palo Alto History Museum for historic and architectural review of the proposed historic rehabilitation of the existing 19,192 square foot building, additions totaling 1,458 square feet, and landscape improvements to a Category 2 historic structure and site at 300 Homer Avenue, also known as the Palo Alto Medical Clinic and the Roth Building. Minor exceptions are requested to allow off-site parking and a front yard encroachment of 3 feet for the proposed additions at the rear elevation. The application includes a request of a conditional use permit to allow community facility uses, environmental assessment categorically exempt from California Environmental Quality Act under Class 15301 existing facilities and Class 15331 historic resource restoration and rehabilitation zoning district PF public facilities in the SOFA Cap 1. Now, are there any board members that need to make any disclosures or recusement? Yes, board member Beth.
I feel that I should recuse myself from this item due to my long involvement in the project. In fact, since its inception, I've served on the board of the Palo Alto History Museum and the advisory board for the entire project as the project developed. I do not have any I have not received any money from the History Museum. It's been all volunteer. But to avoid any perception of impropriety, I need to recuse myself.
Board member Bauer.
I just want to disclose that my family has made contributions to the Palo Alto History Museum for a number of years, but I have no financial benefit from that, so I don't feel any conflict there.
Yeah, our family has also sent some money over there for a number of years, so, but that's my only contact.
And I've also been on the property. I've been through the tour. In fact, it was Board Member Beth that actually led a tour about a few years ago. So I got to see the inside of the project, the inside of the building, so that was good. And I also give architectural walking tours, so I've just been on the premises in that sense. Any other disclosures or comments by board members? Yes, Board Member Bauer. Yeah.
I've also been inside the building the last time this project came before the board, so.
I was there as well with Dave.
Okay, thank you.
And I will be outside when you finish.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
go too far, we may need you. Beth?
Okay, I'd like to open up the public hearing, and will staff have any presentation or recommendations for us? Good. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Matt Weintraub, project planner or historic resources planner, here with Christy Fong, who is the application project planner. I will present some information and analysis. So 300 Homer Avenue is a property built in 1932 as the Palo Alto Medical Clinic. It's a Category 2 historic structure site listed in the local inventory. It's also listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's proposed for rehabilitation and reuse as the Palo Alto History Museum. Some background, the rehabilitation of the property was previously approved in 2011, essentially the same scope of work as what's currently proposed, with some minor changes, which I will go through. The previous project that was approved was determined to be consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards, and the previous entitlement has expired prior to the actual start of work, so that is why the applicant is here today seeking reapproval. The scope of the rehabilitation involves restoration of the historic building form, which has already, to some degree, already occurred because the previous additions have been removed that were in 2001 and 2003, non-historic additions. So to some extent, the building form's already been restored. The proposal includes new rear additions, a new rooftop penthouse addition, landscape and site improvements, and interior renovation. Again, all of these items were included in the previous approval with some minor changes that I'll be going through. Here's the existing site plan. The blue outline outlines the historic site upon which Palo Alto Medical Clinic operated. The green outline, the smaller green outline, represents the actual project site, which contains the building. The areas that are outside of the project area in the historic project site previously contained the additions to the historic building that have since been removed. And this property has been rehabilitated as a public park. So we'll take a look at the north elevation and review what was previously approved in 2011. So here we see the north elevation, which is the primary architectural elevation facing Homer Avenue. As you can see, there's actually very minimal changes proposed on this elevation. We see that you can't actually see, but there's a window in this gable end here that would be restored to a doorway, which was the original configuration actually. And there was a rooftop penthouse lift enclosure that was previously approved in 2011. No change to those items, and those are essentially the only changes to the primary building facade. The other street elevation facing west, facing Bryant Avenue, this is again the approved plan in 2011. Again, very minimal changes. This window here was previously approved as to be converted into a cafe service window, and we have some new details on how that would be accomplished. There would be some landscaping and hardscaping changes, but actually very little change to the actual building elevation. Here we do see the depth of the proposed rear additions, which would be 2 stories tall. As you can see, they are very relatively thin additions compared to the size of the building. Moving over to the east side, which faces the new public park, we can see that there's a bit more work proposed on this side, including some window alterations and rearrangements. some new doorways and openings to be rearranged, as well as this existing blank facade would be proposed for public art mural, which would be reviewed by both the Public Art Commission and the Historic Resources Board. And again, we can see the depth of the rear addition in relation to the entire building. And lastly, at the rear elevation, this is the elevation that is proposed to receive the most work. Currently, we can see that it's a relatively blank facade resulting from the previous additions that were constructed and then removed. So this facade has been sealed off since that time, and the proposal is to add two rear additions to these gable ends that would contain stairways, and as we can see, they would be articulated with cutout arcades and balconies that would reflect the existing architectural vocabulary of the building, and then there would also be a sort of modern aluminum trellis that would be installed in between those new wings to create a sort of mini courtyard effect. So that's essentially the project that was approved in 2011. Again, we're focusing on the exterior features, not looking at the interior features here. And there are some new and changed items that I'd like to go through. These are the items that received the most analysis since all the previous items had been looked at and previously determined consistent with the standards. So the new items that were not previously analyzed in 2011 include historic roof reconstruction, courtyard rehabilitation, bicycle parking reconfiguration, cafe service window details, and trellis details. And I'll go through each of those now. So previously, in 2011, this is the approved plan from 2011. In the roof plan, you can see that in the rear corners of the building, the roofs have very different configurations. This is actually the historic original roof shape, and then this is an altered roof shape. And in the elevation views, we can see that the original roof has a nice hipped roof that covers the entire building section, as well as an overhanging eave. As a result of the previous additions and alterations that occurred, this roof has been altered such that it does not have that full hip, and it actually has a parapet that is covering part of that historic roof and disrupts the overhanging eaves. The proposal currently is to actually restore that altered roof so that it is actually identical or almost identical to the historic roof shape on the original, intact corner, if you will. And so we can see that the ledge gets filled in here, or the eave gets filled in, and the roof shape is restored. So essentially increasing the rehabilitation of the property. The next item that was not previously approved is courtyard rehabilitation, and as we can see, there are some issues with the existing courtyard. You can see that the existing concrete paving is disrupted by historic tree growth. The proposal, in order to fix that situation as well as plan for the future in terms of maintaining both the courtyard and the trees, is to raise the level of the courtyard, the entire grade up maybe a foot or so, and I think the applicant can identify exactly what that depth would be. That would involve removing the existing concrete paving, raising the grade, putting in new concrete pavers rather than the slab paving, and these existing raised brick curbs would remain, but they would be now set flush with grade, so there'd be no tripping hazards. And the paving area would actually be then extended beyond the existing brick boundary to create more pedestrian area within that courtyard. So in plan view, we can see here we have the existing brick curbs, which would stay in place, just reset at grade. This area in here is the existing concrete slabs, which would be replaced by pavers. And then in this area out here, we would also have additional concrete pavers that would be of a different color in order to differentiate them from the historic area. In addition, not shown on this plan, but shown in other plan sheets, two concrete risers would be installed in this location to allow people to go from sidewalk to the new grade, as well as a new accessible ramp would be located in this area as well. The proposal, as we understand it, is to maintain the existing brick benches and some brick paving that exists in these areas. And staff, just to clarify that, has included a recommended condition of approval that be the case. Next, we'll look at the bicycle parking reconfiguration. In the previous plan, there were 5 bicycle parking slots that were proposed at this is the northeast corner of the building. As you can see, they would have been arranged in an asymmetrical configuration that would have been actually very close to the building corner, and wouldn't necessarily have reflected the symmetrical landscape arrangement that you see today. The new proposal is to redistribute those bicycle parking slots across the front facade closer to the sidewalk, which actually allows the number to increase from 5 to 6. It moves the bicycle parking away from the building, which dramatically decreases the chance of some damage to the building by moving bicycles around and that kind of thing. And it also maintains a symmetrical arrangement in the landscape plan. Staff believes that this is actually more consistent with the standards than the previous proposal. Additionally, we have some details for the cafe service window that was previously approved. As approved in 2011, there were no details as to how that would be accomplished. Here we have some details, including a proposal for an awning. In this drawing, it's shown as a flat or box awning, which is staff's recommendation. In this drawing, it's shown as a gabled awning, which is not staff's recommendation because staff believes that a gabled awning would actually not be consistent with the rectangular window forms, and it might actually interfere by reflecting the gabled roof lines might create some complication there. So staff's recommending that the flat or box awning be the approved awning type, as well as the proposal to replace some of the panes with a sliding sash, which would allow for that cafe service, pass-through service to occur. And there's also a proposal to add a service counter. Staff is recommending that this be approved, but that the service counter be approved as a non-permanent, non-fixed item, that it be removed, that it be installed, during service hours, but removed when the cafe is not in service, in order to avoid any permanent alteration of that window or the wall beyond installing the sliding sash. And lastly, we'll look at the trellis details. As previously approved, the trellis was a very modern, sort of simple construction with no brackets, as well as this trellis in this location was approved without, I would call, historicist details. We see in the elevation that we're currently seeing, we see that there's been some decorative corbelled brackets that have been added to the trellis here, as well as some carved OG-shaped rafter ends to this trellis. And staff's recommendation is that essentially those historicist details not be included, that these are more compatible designs with the structure, because the structure as currently proposed doesn't have any carved brackets or carved elements. It's has clean lines, it has crisp corners, things like that. And as originally proposed, I believe that those trellises would be more compatible. Here we see some details of what is actually proposed currently, and we can see that there's some, the carved rafter ends and the corbelled details are what I'm referring to in terms of recommending that those particular details be omitted. So to summarize, staff is recommending to the Historic Resource Board that the application can be recommended to the ARB as consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, with the following conditions: that the decorative details be omitted from the proposed new trellises, that a flat or box awning and a removable counter be used at the new cafe window, that the existing brick benches and paving be retained as part of the courtyard rehabilitation, and that the reconfigured bicycle parking plan be adopted. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Also, I'd like to welcome Councilmember Holman to our meeting. Thank you. Welcome. Good. And Christy Wong. So, welcome. Any questions for the staff, please? Okay. I do have one. Christy, on the project description talks about a front yard encroachment at the rear elevation. Can you explain where the front elevation is and then the front road encroachment and the rear elevation? Yeah.
So good morning, board members. So the encroachment occurs in the new additions at the rear, facing the multifamily developments on the outer side. Basically, these additions will be encroaching to the front yard setback, which will be 20 feet from Bryan Street. And it will be 3 feet encroachment. And this is consistent with the previously approved plan in 2011, and there is no change in this version.
Right. So I understand the front yard is on Bryant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's 3. I see. So it's the new addition on the rear. I see. That's okay. That explains the rear and front elevation. Okay. Thank you. And then past the lease line, there are several mature cypress trees. Will that be a requirement of the city to protect those from removal and harm?
So there are multiple trees that will be removed as the result of the additions, including the cypress tree. So that will be removed. And I think there are multiple ones on the north elevation as well as on the west elevation that is proposed to be removed.
Yeah.
But everything in the courtyard, which is facing Homer Avenue, those will be protected and retained.
Yeah. So those trees are not part of the leased property. So my question is, why are those cypress trees being removed if they're not part of the project? Okay.
They are part of the lease boundary.
It's the, okay. All right, thank you for that. Okay. Those are nice mature trees. I guess my other just follow-up question, is there any way of, are those going to be pulverized? I mean, they're nice mature trees. Okay.
So the city arborist has close consultations with the applicants to try to discuss whether those trees should be maintained or not.
Okay.
But right now, it is at the locations where the new additions are.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right, those are all my questions. Any other questions for staff? Okay. All right, thank you so much. Applicant presentation. I'd like to invite the applicant. We've got 10 minutes for your presentation, and welcome. If you could state your name for the record. Thank you, and welcome.
Good morning. Mike Garavaglia, architect for the project. We're generally, we don't have a long presentation. I think everyone's familiar with the project, and staff has done a great job of preparing a report. We generally are in agreement with all the conditions of approval. We don't have any issues with that. I've made a couple of changes to the documents just to reflect some of the conversations. The turnaround times are pretty quick, so we were able to incorporate all the changes and work out all the issues, especially around the courtyard for the hearing, but definitely intended to take care of that. These drawings here just show the items that were identified as non-compliant in the standards compliance review. So the awning, the stair at the takeout window, whatnot. So I can hand these over just kind of for the record. Not very complicated, quite frankly. I don't know that for this right now that we need to make a real strong presentation, a long presentation, unless there's information that you would like to hear more about. We're here to answer questions. The board's here too, so.
Thank you. Any board members have any questions for the applicant?
I just wanted to ask, what's the kind of the timeline of all of the work that's being done? And obviously, you've been working on it for quite a while and have already gained approvals in 2011.
Right.
But is it just, do you proceed when you have enough funding to complete the project? Or I'm just kind of curious to know what your timeline has been to this.
I think I'll let Myron tell you.
Good morning, board members. Myron Friedman, Executive Director of the Palo Alto History Museum. Yeah, the project's been in the works for quite a while. There's been a dedicated group of volunteers building support for this project over the years. We have an active board in place now and an active fundraising program in place. We have pledges in place as well and current donations that will allow us to start the renovation of the project according to the costs that have been estimated by a contractor. So currently we are hoping to move through this process and the building permit process in the next couple of months. We'd like to break ground on the renovation of the building in June if possible, and we're anticipating about a one-year renovation process, and in concurrent with that will be the development of the actual museum components and all of the designs of exhibitions and the support spaces and the community room and what have you. So all of that will add time as well. So standing here right now, we're hoping to open sometime in late 17, early 18 would be our hope as our fundraising continues to fund the remaining parts of the project.
Right, I've got a couple of questions for the architect.
Absolutely.
I was going to go, I've just marked a couple of pages. We'll just kind of go over some and some of these things are just bookkeeping things.
Absolutely.
One on page A 0.00, just because this will become part of the public record, just corrections. So under parking, you just put the spelling of the correct street name for Waverly. And then Saturday, you can just for the public record, just so you have corrections of spelling. That was the only comment on that page. Let's see, I do see on page C 1.1 that you've graciously are going to restore or keep in place the builder's markers on the sidewalk.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very thoughtful gesture. It says that they protect during construction. One of them is covered with asphalt, so I guess you can see what you can do for, anyway, but that was a nice, gracious thing to discover those. Sure. That's just a comment. It just says that you'll restore it or replace them. It says if they do need to be removed because of concrete replacement, that on your note, on note 26, it says that the if it needs to be moved, that you'll relocate it somewhere. So my suggestion would be just coordinate with the planning department of where those actually get relocated if you have to relocate them.
Yes. Yeah, we'll probably try to put it right back where it came from. So
I'm sorry.
we would try to put it exactly where it came from.
Okay, great.
Repair
Perfect.
the sidewalks. So.
Thank you for that. On page A 1.11, site plan. Where Matt Weintraub mentioned the cafe window.
Yes.
I'm looking at that, and I believe that cafe window will need to be accessible, correct? As part of a public...
Yes, if the window needs to be accessible, we because of a building code requirement, we would create a removable shelf.
Sure. Yeah.
And alter it along those lines.
Sure.
So if that's what the decision is.
Yeah.
So.
I'm looking at the path of travel for someone in a wheelchair, for example, to get to that window. I'm just following your ramps here. So you'd come off of Bryant Avenue, go up that sidewalk, then up the ramp, and then on over, and then to where that window would be. my understanding of ADA requirements is that wheelchair would need a 5-foot diameter turnaround at that point here, so that person then can then exit that long way. These drawings, they're small scale. So I guess that the landing in front of somewhere there needs to be that 5-foot turnaround. So I'm not, again, we don't have large dimension plans here. So I guess that would be part of a building plan check comment. So that might have to get altered if it's not, doesn't have the 5-foot turnaround there.
Yeah.
I see the steps coming down, but where's the, so if that's 5 foot, again, there's no dimension, but you understand that requirement?
Yes, yes, exactly. We did, these plans, by the way, did go through building code permit checks previously, so although I take the comment and definitely will make sure that it meets those minimums.
Okay, sure, great, thanks. Good. Okay. All right, let's see. Page A, 3.12, south elevation and west elevation, that's already been discussed, and it's like your revised drawings already accommodate that. That was the awning that we talked about.
Yes.
And then the core bells, and then the yellow OG carving to get remove those. Great. Okay. The plans that you just handed out still show the little carving up on the upper floor balcony. So our recommendation is going to be that we remove the carving. That's at your south elevation, the little trellis.
I'm not sure.
Let's see, looking at the south elevation on page A, the ones that the architect handed out.
Do you mean the shaping of the
Yes.
trellis at the edge?
Yeah. Your earlier proposal did not have those on there. So,
Okay.
so our recommendation is going to be that remove the core bell shape there.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that okay? Great. Okay. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
great. Thank you. Okay, and then page A, 8.10, same comment we just made of not having the carved elements there. We just finished discussing that.
In the handout, did you see the modification there? We removed the trellis extension. The detail came out entirely, and then
I see that. Yes.
Number 11 on the sheet shows the squared up.
Yeah. Okay.
trellis ends.
I do see
That we'd be basing the trellis design on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good. Page A, 8.11.
Yes.
We've had this on some other projects, and that's why I'm bringing this up. On detail 18, cafe service window.
Yes.
That's adding the new sliding service window. If the window frame and then any revisions to any mutton bars or mullions, those can be pretty close to the same dimension.
Yes.
We've had other projects where shop drawing came in and it was like 3 inches wide or something like that. So,
We'd have to work with steel, not aluminum systems here, because this is really a custom
Excellent.
design.
Thank you. Okay, and I believe those are all my questions. Any other board members have any other questions for, yes, Board Member Bauer?
So just a quick question about the awning over the cafe window. That awning, there was some mention about it being removable during non-service hours?
Not the awning.
Okay.
The possibility of a
shelf.
counter extension,
Fine.
yes.
I don't want the awning to be removable.
No.
That
I mean,
would-
it can be reversible. I mean, you could
Sure,
easily
right.
take it off,
Okay.
From that vantage point.
I guess one other comment I'll make is I'd like to thank staff for doing a great job in collecting all of the small items that change on this project. This is a big project. We seem never to get plans this detailed. You never know what when you ask for something, you never know what you're going to get. This is the most thorough set of plans I think we've reviewed in years. So there's a lot of work to do, and I appreciate the staff's effort to make it simpler for us.
I just wanted to let you know that on your circle or in front of the service window, all you need to do is move the steps that go down over one, and you're there 5 feet. So it's not too big a deal.
Yes.
I wanted to ask something. I just wanted to take a quick look at the south elevation, because that looks like the side of the building that has the most impact in terms of change. With the new additions that create sort of a dropped gable end.
Yes.
I think that's really well done in terms of the existing elevation and what you're proposing for the new elevation. And I'm just noticing how the roof of those additions is basically a big skylight. That's what it looks like. It's a glass roof.
Right.
So, I mean, I just wanted to just focus on that, and I think that's a nice complement to the existing building, yet it does offer that differentiation that I think is important, so that historically when the building lives on for years, that addition will always be thought of as something that was added to the building after its original design. I just was wondering that detail, it looks like there's a little parapet wall. The gable goes up into a parapet, and then behind it is the glass.
Yes.
Would it make sense to try to apply like a row of Spanish tile, or would that be too sort of, wouldn't have the real integrity, because there's that new roof addition doesn't have a Spanish tile? Because it looks, I mean, when just looking at it, you know how the Spanish tile row kind of softens it a little bit?
Yes.
But I was just wondering what your thoughts were.
The addition is sort of like a bas relief. We have this very shallow space in which to animate the back wall of the building right now. Obviously, the wall is very, very plain. It was very perfunctory how it was created in the first place. So with that little 7 or 8 foot swatch, we did this small addition. It's scaling down the elements, so sort of trying to tear the larger mass of the building down to some degree. And it's a contemporary addition. So the differentiation was through a little bit more refined handling of materials, so sharper corners, slight color differentiation, these kind of contemporary details like it's actually a cowl wall type skylight. It's not a clear glass skylight, so it's got a little bit more visual mass to it. It's not quite as transparent. But adding a clay tile cap to that might be a little bit too much, moving towards trying to replicate the original architecture. Matt would probably have a opinion on that as far as whether it's appropriate or not. I'm trying to stay away from it because it would feel a little because it's a thin wall. To me, it's cleaner the way it is currently, and just sort of allows that tearing down to help create the differentiation and sort of that's the dotting of the I and crossing of the T, so to speak, about the design with the historic structure. So I can see how what you're saying. I think that from the differentiation vantage point, we'd step back from that.
Was the use of the glass roof, was that? Obviously, you probably thought about using just the Spanish tile roof there, but what led you to coming to the conclusion of using the glass roof?
We're trying to get a little bit more light into the space. Again, excuse me, the ceiling heights are a little low in the building, so we're trying to find ways to increase the overall interior experience, give the interior space a little bit more animated a little bit more. So that was primarily, and then letting light in from above. The archive is on the second floor to the left side. So again, in that space, create a little more architectural interest on the interior. So that's primarily why we did not put a tile roof on it. And again, working a little bit towards that differentiation.
Yeah, I think it is if you compare what you're proposing with what's existing, it's very well done.
Yes.
I think it's nice.
Any other comments from board members? Roger. Michael, yes.
Yes, I have a question just regarding the trellis.
Yes.
It's called out as an aluminum. do you plan on leaving it naturally aluminum, or are you going to anodize it with a color?
No, we actually had a, it's a kind of a sky blue color. We had a, oh, there it is. So this was you can see the aluminum shapes from, this is a high quality trellis, it's sharp edges, it's not one of those kind of molded, almost plastic looking. So it's sharp edges and the, where am I? So the coloring of the trellis, it's to be painted. I think it's a powder coat finish, but you can see it's you know, sharp edges and good solid sized elements. So that's the proposed design. Does that make sense? Post, main beam, and then trellis elements. Is it you're kind of seeing the assembly?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's sort of like modern sculpture here. Sorry about that. We wanted to give a sense of the actual materials and not, I mean, obviously we can't build a full-size mock-up of the thing, but these are the, you know, full-size elements that would be used.
Any other questions, Roger?
I thought I've been sitting here looking at the walls you're talking about, and it brings back college days when Moore, Turnbull, and Linden were, I was at Oregon, they were all involved. Don Linden was the dean, and Bill Turnbull came as a critic, and then Charlie Moore, and they devised this kind of freestanding wall. I'm not sure they were the first people to do it, but in a lot of their designs, individually and together, this freestanding wall unit was used a lot.
Yeah,
it's a very kind of neat feature to a fairly simple way to add some nice detail to this rear end of the project.
yeah, the layering is and articulation of the elements. There's very little space in which to create some kind of visual interest and, you know, some architecture. So
I think it's a nice addition to that end. I remember David and I toured the building at one point a couple times, and walking around to that end, it's not such a great look.
you know, it's not.
So.
Questions? Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right, thank you. I'd like to invite the members of the public to speak. If there are any members of the public like to speak on this agenda item, please let yourselves know. Okay, seeing none. Any closing comments by the applicant before we close the public hearing?
Personally, I'd just like to thank you all for hanging in with us. It's been a great opportunity to develop the project. Staff's been very good about working with us, and I do also appreciate their attention to detail. It's made it a lot easier for us, inevitably, to make this easy for you to evaluate. Some of you were here with the previous application, and just being able to transfer that forward easily, so that you make it easy for you to experience the project has been good. So, and I hope that I think this round we're in pretty good shape. So, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you and welcome.
Myron Friedman again. On behalf of the Palo Alto History Museum, I also want to thank the staff of the city for helping us with for reviewing this project in a thorough and very helpful manner. It's been a very good experience, and also how excited we are with this opportunity to not only preserve this wonderful Burge-Clark building, but to develop this community center that will focus on history and historic resources for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to now close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for any motions or recommendations, please. Okay. Michael, your light's on? Okay. Right. Okay, any motions? I'll make one if you like. Okay, yeah. All right, I'd like to move that the HRB recommend to ARB, is that correct? That the project as presented is consistent with the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. And I'd like to also then include the conditions of approval that are listed in the staff report. I'll read those. That talks about the existing brick paving around the benches be included in the project. Condition number 2, based on our staff report, page 11, says, I'll read it. It says, in the courtyard, the existing metal rain gutter shall be repaired and restored to historic condition following the removal of the existing metal brace from the jacaranda tree. Condition number 3, the new trellis structure at the south rear elevation is approved without the proposed decorative core-built brackets. Condition 4, the new awning at the west elevation be a flat shed awning, not the gable awning. Condition 5, the proposed new service counter at the cafe window is not approved as a permanent or fixed element. The counter is approved only as a temporary removable fixture, not remaining in place during non-service hours. The condition includes not having any permanent fixture or hardware or light fixtures there. There will be some signage on the awning, but that's going to be through the sign ordinance. And that the, see, there is a condition here that says the previously approved plan for new wide risers centered on the new cafe shall be implemented and detailed in the building permit application. Okay, we already talked about that. Okay. All right, any comments on these conditions and the motion? Okay.
I just want to be clear about the first condition, that the 2 brick-supported benches are going to remain, but not necessarily, that doesn't preclude renovation. Because they don't, as I drove by them this morning, they don't look like they're in very good shape, and I want to be sure that we're not retaining something that would eventually fall apart. So it's the concept of the benches as they look now that's going to be retained, but during construction they can rebuild them to match. Is that correct?
That is correct. They certainly can be rehabilitated as the existing features.
Fine. With that clarification, I'd second this motion.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on that motion? Second. Staff, any of you have any clarifications on the motion as presented?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, we ready to vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously for those present. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, and we look forward to the next steps. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Bernstein?
Yes.
Nothing having to do with the motion, but just a bit of historical context. So the cypress trees that you asked about at the back, those were installed at the time, and Dave Doctor, who's here, will probably remember this, those were installed as a temporary and intended to be a temporary landscape feature to kind of blunt the effect of the back of the building to the residents on the other side. Trees grow, but that's what the original intention was.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. All right. I believe we're ready for then the next agenda item for today's hearing. And I will read that. Yeah. All right, agenda item number 2, HRB retreat. Yes. Okay. Okay, that's good. So agenda item number 2, HRB retreat, will be held following the conclusion of today's hearing. The items for discussion include 1, bylaws and procedures, and 2, HRB work plan. And I'll just wait for a staff's word when we're ready for the bylaws and procedures, or we can switch things around. Okay.
So staff recommends that we take a short recess, and then we'll actually be conducting the retreat in the community room.
Okay, good.
So.
Okay, good. Okay, great. All right,
So perhaps a 5-10-minute recess?
sure. We'll take a 5-minute recess and then reconvene in the community room and the front lobby there. Great, thank you. Bye.